Okay, that's good. Okay, we'll get started here then.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back to the Azure Podcast. This is episode number 467, being recorded on July 26th, 2023. I'm here. This is Cale Teeter. I'm the only one here today. We might be joined by Russell here in a bit, but the others are out. But we do have a special guest here, Radhika, to talk about some things with App Service today. Before we get into that, I'm going to talk about a few things here in the news that Russell had dropped in here. The first one being, basically we have these dev boxes we spoke about before on the podcast, which are kind of these self-contained cloud-based workstations for developers. So these are now generally available. So they've been out for a while in preview. And basically we have these things ready for GA now. And this works again with like code spaces and all the kind of whole developer flow that we have built there as part of the platform. The second thing we have is announcing the Azure Managed Lustre for HPC and AI workloads. So AI being a pretty relevant topic today in the world, and HPC computing obviously kind of is needed for a lot of those AI workloads. And this is a high performance file system that's being used for HPC workloads. So Luster's been a partner for quite some time with Azure, and this is a managed offering that's it's out there now for people to take advantage of. A lot of details in the blog post about the performance specs and things around this, and some of the partners or customers rather who are actually using that. Another one we have is something I talk about quite a bit here is cost management. For those who are new to the podcast or haven't been around before, the cost management features that we have inside of Azure, management features rather, are built there to help you kind of rationalize and control your costs and your spend in Azure around like what you are using up there, what resources are using things, all the kind of cost reporting and how you can save money, how you can optimize, all those kind of things. So pretty comprehensive set of tools that continues to evolve. I think we have these monthly, and there's an update here around some new features that are in there, resource utilization, some new pricing pages for different services that are up there. This cost management labs, which basically gives you kind of like a preview feature to see some of the new stuff that's coming for cost management. So pretty cool feature there, similar to how we do, like preview features with other things, Windows and otherwise. Another one here is around your skills and training, and basically there's this Microsoft CLX tracks for Azure now, which are connected learning experience is what CLX stands for, and these are for there's been 3 new tracks here for Azure professionals, and these are basically around the networking components, Sentinel, and migration of Windows servers to Azure. So there's some new learning content up there for folks who are interested in that, again, around networking, Windows Server migration, and Microsoft Sentinel. And we'll drop that link in there. And then another one is that goes along with Microsoft Learn is this Azure OpenAI service. So there's been some learning content that's been added for that. Again, very relevant today with how AI is kind of exploding in the world, and a lot of enterprises are getting involved in that. So there's some new learning paths up here that help you with the OpenAI service, like getting started, how to start building stuff, some of the engineering features behind those kind of things. So really cool stuff. Go take a look at it. This content's up there on our learning site. So we'll drop those links in the show notes. But in the interest of time here, I'll go ahead and, as I mentioned, we have a special guest here today, Radhika. So Radhika, could you basically give us a little background on what you do at Microsoft and what we're going to talk about today with app services?
Yep, sure. Thank you, Cale. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to participate in this podcast today. I'm Radhika. I'm engineering manager based out of India, Hyderabad. I work on WordPress on Azure App Service, and also I'm one of the engineering manager for Dapper. It's a distributed application runtime, an open source project funded by Microsoft. Today we are going to we will talk about WordPress on Azure App Service. The the features that we offer, what WordPress is about, and then how we host on app service, and what are the benefits or the features that customers can leverage, and also what are the new things that are going to come, we are going to release in the upcoming weeks.
Awesome. So this integration, like, I mean, WordPress is something, for those who aren't aware, is kind of like a solution for people to do things like blogs, but even entire websites on it, right? It's kind of expanded its use, and I'd say there's a lot of websites on the internet using WordPress as their backend. But I guess the question is like, so when it started, we could still run it on Azure, maybe like IaaS or something like this. But when you say it runs on an app service, what kind of like specific integration is there for WordPress?
Yeah, sure. So as you rightly said, it's WordPress is most used content management system in the world. It's a top content management system. Almost like 63% of websites are running on WordPress. It's a simple content management system. Any person can quickly spin up a blog post or a website without having much technical background, right? So, as you rightly said, that the WordPress can be hosted anywhere. It can be on VM, it can be on Kubernetes, or it can be on app service. So, I think the advantage that customers can get on app service, hosting WordPress on app service being a managed PaaS hosting platform, it's the all the infrastructure related, the whole management stuff is taken care by us. The developer or the bloggers or the content developers, they can just focus their time on building their content and publicizing their content. uh, the behind the scenes, WordPress uses PHP. It runs on PHP and it uses Nginx as a web server. So we take care of all that, managing the latest versions of PHP, Nginx, security, right? All that we take care of. That's the advantage that the user can get from deploying their or hosting their WordPress site on Azure App Service compared to IaaS or compared to Kubernetes, where they have to spend the time in managing the infrastructure as well. In addition to that, App Service also has an additional features, like it will provide the customers can buy a domain from Azure. They can have their own domain. They can get the free SSL certificate, right? And even App Service also has the integration with some of the monitoring tools like Azure Monitor or App Insights, where they can leverage it for monitoring their website. And App Service also has these scale up or scale out capabilities based on the user load. So I can automatically scale out my setup to fulfill the user needs without any additional effort, right? So these are the additional advantages it will provide to the customers, where they can leverage and build a powerful WordPress sites.
That's really cool. So like on the scaling piece, right? You mentioned like WordPress can run in like really simple environments or even like super complex ones. Let's say it's like eBay or something, like something
Yeah.
really a really big site. So in that case, I assume there's other components behind WordPress. It's not just you mentioned it's PHP, but is there a database and things like that involved with it, or is it strictly file based? And how does that scale, right? Is that something that people can go in and tweak as let's say I start out today and now I got a million users. How easy is it for me to scale up to that?
Yep, yep. So the our offering that the WordPress on Azure App Service, we use MySQL, Azure MySQL Flexible Server, which is a managed instance as the database. So, and we also have integrations with Azure CDN or Azure Front Door or the blob storage, where customers can leverage. We have out of the box integrations with these components, which would help in, yeah, as you rightly said, WordPress has file-based content and the database content too, right? Both work in hand. So when it comes to the file-based content where customers can have huge themes or where to build their website with certain theme, or they can have certain video files, the media files that they wanted to post on those websites. So some of those media files can be hosted on blob storage. Customers can leverage to host on blob storage, which will give a faster access to the content. They can do that. And the database is strictly it's a MySQL flexible server, which is managed by Microsoft. And customers can configure. So MySQL server also has this capability of IO ops and the storage, right? The storage is the key thing, and it has a features of auto scale of IO ops or auto scale of storage. So as said, when the number of requests are increasing, when the number of users are increasing, when we think about increases scaling up the web server, which is app service, similarly, the administrator of the WordPress site can go and scale up their database to meet the needs.
Awesome. And as you mentioned, like this integrates seamlessly with our like Azure Monitor and some of the stuff we already have out of the box for monitoring. So users, I assume, can just take advantage of that to say, hey, just keep tabs on things here. And when we start seeing pressure on database, file system, all those kind of things, then they know that it's time to act, you know.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about like I don't know, not being familiar with the product, like on the security side of things, because a lot of
Mhm.
times when you have these CMS systems, this is kind of important, right? Because if this is a front face for your business, obviously you want to keep that secure. You don't want to be hacked or have someone get in there and start posting content that's malicious or something like that. Does this integrate with any of like Azure AD or any other like how do we handle the security aspect of this for like managing people who are going to add content to this, you know?
Yeah, sure. I think it has, I mean, three different levels of security aspects. As one is the user access, which they can integrate these, enable the AAD integration so that the user access, the user role-based access can be controlled by AAD. That's one level of access validation can be done. Then the other thing is app service has an out of the box integration with Azure Defender, which would be continuously monitoring the content of the site behind the scenes, and if there is any malicious content coming into the site, it will report. Right. And it will notify and report so that users can go and take the corrective action. The third thing is since we run on app service, so behind the scenes, app service also uses VM, right, to host its containers and to host the content coming from the customer. So we periodically we keep changing the underlying machines, the VMs that we use to host these app service, so that we keep changing this machine so that it's not going to stick to one machine, so that where customers can hackers can capture the host name or something. And other thing is at the app service level, the access is very much restricted only to the content that customer is pushing to. And it has a file level permissions where only certain level of operations user can do and not beyond that. And since the access is restricted at the content level or the container where the customer content is being placed, and it will not allow the access to any of the underlying infrastructure or underlying the components that app service lay down. It kinds of secure the whole environment, and we keep changing the underneath infrastructure so that It becomes really difficult for the hackers to inject into the site and do the stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What about like at the WordPress level, right? So WordPress is an open source product, but like it continues to evolve, right? So there's
Yeah.
version X today and there's version Y tomorrow. How does that get handled? If I deploy this service on app service today, how do I handle those upgrades, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's really important to keep on the latest and greatest version always, right? To not get into the any of the security concerns that we just discussed. So WordPress has these major versions and minor version releases, which they release frequently. Uh, right. So what we had done was in Azure App Service, we have enabled WordPress itself has this auto upgrade feature where customers can opt in. So from app service side, we have enabled that feature. What it does is if there is any minor version released by WordPress, we do auto upgrade. We handle that, right? As an app service, we upgrade the sites for all the customers.
Hmm.
However, if it is any major version change, then it's a customer choice that customer can opt in for enabling their site to automatically upgrade to the major versions, right? If they opt in for that feature, then when WordPress releases a new version, a major version, then the site will automatically upgrade for them. We have given that control to the customers. We on purpose, we do not want to take that control because sometimes the major versions do come with some of the breaking changes, right? And we don't know that what sort of content the customer has posted on their site and the dependencies that they have with these versioning. So we wanted customer to decide upon validating their whole stuff, their whole content, and then based on their convenience they can choose to upgrade to the highest version in case of major versions. And it is very simple. In few steps they can migrate the version to the highest version by just in two steps they can log into WordPress. The admin of the site can log into WordPress admin dashboard, and on the dashboard WordPress keep flagging that, okay, hey, you have a new version, do you want to upgrade it? So customer can go and click on the button and it will upgrade for them.
Nice.
That's how we do the WordPress version upgrades. And behind the scenes, as I was telling earlier, we use PHP, we use Alpine based Linux container we use to host the WordPress content. So we have to maintain the Alpine, the base image version also up to date. And we also have Nginx, right? So we have an SLA of 30 days when any newer version of Alpine or PHP or Nginx is released. In 30 days of that newer release, we automatically upgrade these versions behind the scenes and without any impact to the customers. There won't be any downtime, there won't be any cooling period or anything. Seamlessly, it will upgrade to the newer version and their site would be on the new stack on this.
Maybe I don't know if it's too complex, but I was wondering, like, how do people that are more complex handle those kind of, let's say I'm a big enterprise and I'm kind of paranoid about updates like that. I want to make sure, as you said, I want to validate that the new version, let's say it's a major version, works. Is there an easy way for
Mm.
them to do that? Or do they usually run like a staging instance of this on app service and then they run like a production one and that way they can test their stuff? Is that typical or is there another way, you know?
That's a good question, Callie. So you're right. So app service do have a feature of that staging slots, right? Where you can have a slots, you can have a staging site, and then yes, as in most of the customers do have their staging site and their production sites. But as of now, uh, since in case of WordPress, it has both web and database also, right? Database being a different entity here.
Hmm.
And there is no staging concept for database as such. The staging is only for app service, right?
Hmm.
So the customers has to manually handle the database part of it behind the scenes.
Gotcha.
So we are
Yeah.
working on coming up with a seamless approach for customers to follow, where they can leverage these staging slots also and get benefit out of it. So we are going to come up with the documented guidance for the customers that they can leverage in a more full-fledged way.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like a great service. I'm glad we had you on here to kind of talk through that. Is there any like specifics that you can talk to around like WordPress itself and Microsoft, like a relationship between the two? Like, are we kind of deeply connected with that community that's building that, or how does that work? Or are we just basically pulling it from an open source repo and using it, you know?
Okay, that's a great question. So I think, yeah, as it WordPress as a community, it's I mean 20 plus years community, right? The community age, and I think we have this service running on app service quite some time. But in between, we got as a app service as a offering, we got kind of slowed down in supporting WordPress. It was kind of quiet for some time,
Hmm.
and later on, if you see, there are several players in the market who provide WordPress offering hosting
Hmm.
platforms, right? So the cost has become really compete. The features has become really competent,
Hmm.
so that's where, and on the app service side also, our Linux offering has become more matured. So thinking all these aspects, from last year, we started investing again on the app service side, where WordPress on Azure,
Nice.
we started investing in it. So I think we are very lightly connected with the community right now, but we do have a plans. I think one of the things which we are working on is coming up with a free hosting plan, right? A WordPress on app service with a free hosting plan, so that we can connect to the community. We can say that, hey, we have an offering, come and experience it, right? So that's where we are waiting on that hosting plan to come out, so that we can become more active with the community, and we can provide some opportunity or playground to the community also to experience or to leverage our offering. So I think since we do not have that playground yet, we are kind of playing little low at this point in time. So we just monitor the whenever WordPress releases a newer version, we just take it and refresh on our hosting plans. We are at that phase right now, but I think in few months we would be expanding it.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think in several sites on within Microsoft, right? There were several sites hosted on WordPress, and it was really kind of surprising to see that they are hosted on a different provider. Okay, WP Engine is one of the WordPress
Hmm.
hosting provider,
Hmm.
and our Microsoft sites are hosted on those hosting providers. So recently, we started having conversation with some of our Microsoft teams to show that, hey, we have our own offering, and then see if we can leverage it, and then if you can get your sites running on our own offering.
Yeah, like you
Is
said,
the
I mean, the platform or the services you guys have been working on have matured quite a bit in terms of scalability, security, monitoring, all that stuff. So I can imagine that, you know, as that stuff matured, now it's viable to run, you know, high scale sites there, you know.
Yeah, yeah, true.
That's great. Yeah. So users, I'm sure. So is any of this? I assume this stuff's not in preview. These everything we talked about here is GA, so users can take advantage of it right today in production, all that kind of stuff.
Yes, so we have GA'd this service in August 2022. Okay, last year we GA'd the service, and from then we have been evolving this offering, adding more features, making the site more secure and performant. Performance was one of the biggest feedback we had when we started this, where users are claiming that Hey, you have a great hosting platform where I can deploy in few steps, but your performance is not that great, right? So then we took that feedback seriously, and I think to some extent we made the performance better, leveraging Azure CDN or Azure Front Door for the end user persona. And then we are working on optimizing on the backend side, where we optimize to good extent now, which will give a good performance for admin personas too, where they manage their content, they manage the plugins, themes, and all from the admin dashboard. So now we made the dashboard also more performant. That's one step we move the needle. Then we have now recently lately we started getting inquiries from different customers that is there a way for them to automatically or a simple in simple steps they can migrate the site running on a different platform to Azure, right? We do not have an automated approach yet. And if customers have to do that, they have to buy a third party plugins, which is going to be additional cost for them. So now we are working on giving a migration plugin where they can just install that on their WordPress site and then export and import the content in few steps and then get their site migrated. So we are going to release that plugin in a couple of weeks from now, which customers can get benefit from, and it might help simplify their migration steps. Then we also have, I think, email integration is one of the common feature. I think all the several WordPress hosting platforms have that feature, which is very common. That especially when a site is hosted for a university and when they have any new notifications, right? When a new program is introduced or the college is going to commence, where they send the news broadcast to their students or to their parents and all, and where this email really plays an important role. So we are coming up with an email integration in Azure. We have this service called Azure Communication Service. So we are building integration with that service, and we are giving an email feature. It's going to release in a week time or so to the customers. And then we have recently released WordPress multi-site support, which seems that a very common feature that WordPress users prefer to, especially when they have. I'm taking an example of educational institution itself, where they have different branches in different cities, and then they have to manage the content differently for these different cities, but still wanted to manage from one central location or one super admin. In such cases, WordPress multi-site feature would become very handy. That's very commonly used feature. Where we recently released that feature where they can configure the multi-site either as a subdirectory or as a subdomain, where you can have a domain for each city and then users can access to that. That feature is already available now. Customers can use it. These are some of the things, and then the most important thing is that the free SKU that we are working on right now, in a month time we will be releasing a free hosting plan where customers can host WordPress site on Azure App Service and play with it. It's going to be free for 12 months. So they can leverage that. That's coming in. And in addition to that, they recently we released the best practices guide on giving a guidelines around how to host their website, which would give a better performance and better management. So recently we released a technical blog post on that, which customers can follow and then establish their site on Azure.
That's great. Yeah, I'd like to maybe we can get that link and we'll put it in the show notes for our listeners. So if they're interested, they can go directly to that. So
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like there's been a lot of work here that your team has been doing and yourself. So appreciate you coming on here and talking about what we have there to offer from WordPress. So if there's any closing things you want to leave our listeners with, feel free. Otherwise, we'll also put the links in the show notes that you referenced here, so anybody listening can check those out. Um,
Sure. Yeah, I will share that. And I think, yeah, one last thing I have is, I mean, the AI is being is more happening thing right now, right? So I think we also have integration with Azure Open AI, which will simplify. Really, it simplifies the admin's job. In few minutes it can bring up a blog post, it can create an image, and if I want to build a travel blog site, I just say that, hey, I create a travel blog site for me with this information. Then it will spin up the travel blog site for me in any language. Okay, I can specify which language I want, in which language I wanted the content, and what the subject is about, and then in few minutes it will generate a website in the specified language with the completely polished language. It does all the grammatical checks and everything, and with a fine grained polished language it will give the website.
wow.
So we, yeah, that's coming up. So where everyone can benefit from, and in few minutes they can spin up their WordPress site and then host it. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. I hadn't even thought about that AI aspect, but I can imagine that folks, maybe not on the blog post, but on the blog post side too, because they can make professional, like you said, grammatical checks, all that kind of stuff, even like fact check stuff and things like that. So that's pretty cool that that's
Yeah.
integrated already. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Well, thanks for
Yeah.
coming again, and thanks for educating our listeners here.
Sure. Thank you, Cale. Nice talking to you. Yeah, I can share all the different links. Yeah, so you can capture
Sounds
it
good.
in your notes and then post it. Yeah,
Sounds good.
great. Thank you.